The notification arrived at 6:42 a.m. Standard formatting, automated sender, no priority flag. Subject, Treasury Transfer Executed System, Global Cash Management Platform. Reference ID, TX884192. Amount, $2,450,000. From operating account, parent to concentration account holdings, execution time. Status completed. I opened the transaction detail. The transfer had cleared. Funds settled. No holds. No pending review. The authorization field populated automatically. Authorized by System Approval Path, Default, Treasury Workflow, Override, None. Exception flags, None. I scrolled. The memo line was blank. No project code, no vendor reference, no explanatory note, just the movement. I checked the prior balance, then the current balance. The delta matched the transfer amount exactly. I refreshed the page. The numbers remained stable. The audit log loaded beneath the transaction. Time-stamped entries. Machine generated. Workflow initiated. Validation checks passed. Liquidity threshold confirmed. Compliance screening completed. Transfer executed. No human identifier appeared in the sequence. I opened the approval tree. The diagram expanded into its standard hierarchy: policy layer, threshold layer, routing layer. Every node showed green. No approver names populated at any level. I navigated to the daily cash movement report. The transfer appeared there as well, categorized as internal rebalancing, marked routine. I filtered for transactions requiring executive sign-off. Nothing flagged. I opened the authorization settings. CFO approval thresholds were unchanged. Controller limits unchanged. Treasury limits unchanged. No temporary delegation notices. No interim overrides. The system clock read 6:49 a.m. I returned to the transaction detail and exported the record. The PDF generated without comment. At the bottom of the page, a single line appeared in the footer, processed in accordance with established Treasury controls. I closed the file. The funds had moved. I logged in at 7:18 a.m. Single sign-on authenticated without delay. The dashboard loaded in its default configuration. No alerts, no warnings, no banners indicating recent changes. The home screen displayed the standard modules: financial reporting, treasury management, vendor payments, approval calendar. All tiles active. I clicked Treasury Management. The platform opened to the consolidated view. Cash balances by entity populated in rows. Parent company at the top. Subsidiaries listed beneath, sorted alphabetically. Each line showed opening balance, current balance, projected end-of-day balance. The figures aligned with the prior day's close, adjusted for the overnight transfer. I expanded the parent row. The detail pane slid open. Linked accounts appeared: operating, payroll, tax, concentration. The concentration account reflected the additional $2.45 million. Timestamp matched the transaction I'd reviewed earlier. I selected transaction history. The filter defaults loaded automatically. Date range set to last 7 days. Transaction type set to all. Approval status set to completed. The list refreshed. Rows populated sequentially. Each entry showed reference ID, amount, source, destination, execution time. The transfer appeared midway down the list. No highlighting, no annotation distinguishing it from other entries. I clicked the column header to sort by amount. Larger transfers floated to the top. Several exceeded the amount I just reviewed. None showed approver names. Each listed authorized by system. I opened one at random. Similar structure, internal movement, default workflow, no exception flags. I navigated to approval calendar. The calendar view loaded with the current week in focus. Blocks appeared across each day, color-coded by function: vendor payments, payroll, intercompany transfers. Today's date showed 3 scheduled items: 2 vendor payments, 1 intercompany rebalancing. The rebalancing entry matched the transfer. It was marked as completed with a green indicator. I clicked into the calendar item. The detail panel opened. Execution window is 6:37. Approval requirement: automated, policy compliant. Review cycle: quarterly. No approver listed. No reviewer listed. I returned to the main dashboard. The vendor payments tile showed a numeric badge: 4 pending approvals. I opened it. The queue displayed 4 items, each below the CFO threshold. Approval authority listed as treasury or controller depending on amount. Assigned reviewers populated with names. I did not open any of them. I switched to financial reporting. The reporting system loaded with the Q4 Close workspace active by default. Draft statements were visible in the sidebar. Access level displayed at the top, read-only, Audit Committee. I navigated through the folders, balance sheet, income statement, cash flow, subsidiary schedules. Everything was accessible, nothing restricted. I clicked Access Details. A modal appeared listing my permissions across systems. Treasury Management, read-only consolidated view. Vendor payments, read-only. Financial reporting, read-only. Approval calendar, view. Each permission showed an effective date. Treasury access effective January 15th. Vendor payments access effective January 12th. Reporting access effective January 10th. Each listed an authorizing role. Treasury, Director Treasury. Vendor payments, Director Treasury. Reporting, Controller. I closed the modal. I opened System Activity. The log displayed recent access events tied to my account. Login times, module access, file exports. At 6:58 a.m. an entry showed user accessed Treasury transaction detail TXT 8841932. At 7:02 a.m. user exported transaction record PDF. The entries were time-stamped and sequential. I scrolled further. The activity log also showed access events by other users. Names appeared alongside actions. Rebecca Portman accessed financial reporting at 6:31 a.m. Sarah Chen accessed treasury management at 6:34 a.m. Margaret Seo accessed vendor payments at 6:52 a.m. Each action was read-only. I filtered the log to show permission changes. 3 entries appeared within the past 10 days. January 10th, financial reporting, access granted, read-only. Authorized by controller January 12th, vendor payments, access granted, read-only. Authorized by Director Treasury. January 15th, Treasury Management, access granted, read-only. Authorized by Director Treasury. My name appeared on the January 15 entry. I clicked it. The detail pane opened, reason field populated automatically, Audit Committee Oversight. No additional notes. I navigated back to the dashboard. All systems remained responsive, no latency, no error messages. I opened Delegation Settings. The matrix loaded in table format. Transaction types listed vertically. Approval authorities listed horizontally. Thresholds indicated by dollar ranges. For intercompany transfers, the approval path showed System, Treasury Policy, Execution. No named approvers appeared in that row. I scrolled to Vendor Payments. Named approvers appeared. Primary, Backup, Escalation. I scrolled to Capital Expenditures. Named approvers appeared. Intercompany transfers remained the only category routed entirely through policy layers. I hovered over the policy node. A tooltip appeared. Automated execution based on liquidity threshold, exposure limits, and compliance rules. I clicked Policy Details. The policy document opened in a new pane. Version number displayed at the top. Last updated September 2024. The document outlined parameters, minimum operating balances, concentration thresholds, exposure caps, timing windows. No human approval requirements were listed. I closed the document. I returned to the transaction list and refreshed the page again. No changes. I opened the Notifications panel. The transfer notification remained unread. Beneath it, other notifications appeared. Vendor payment reminders, reporting deadlines, audit committee meeting reminders, all routine. I marked the transfer notification as read. The badge count decreased by 1. I checked the system time again, 7:41 a.m. I logged out of Treasury Management and returned to the main portal. The login screen briefly appeared before redirecting me back to the dashboard. Session continuity maintained. Nothing prompted me to take action. Nothing requested acknowledgement. Everything functioned as designed. At 8:06 a.m., I opened the approval hierarchy. The interface loaded as a collapsible tree. Top level labeled Enterprise Financial Controls. Beneath it, branches expanded into categories: expenditures, transfers, payroll, reporting. I expanded transfers. Sub-branches appeared: external wires, intercompany transfers, treasury rebalancing. I selected intercompany transfers. The pane refreshed. A diagram populated on the right side of the screen. Rectangular nodes connected by directional arrows. Each node labeled with a function, not a person. Initiation, policy validation, liquidity check, compliance screening, execution. No human review stage appeared in the sequence. I clicked Initiation. A side panel opened, criteria listed in bullet format. Trigger conditions, balance variance, exposure concentration, timing window. Data sources reference system tables, no reference to manual input. I clicked policy validation. Another panel, rule set identifiers, version numbers, Boolean conditions if statements rendered in plain language. If operating account balance exceeds threshold for 3 consecutive cycles, route excess to concentration account. No override path specified. I clicked liquidity check. The system displayed a table of minimum balances by entity. Parent company minimum highlighted. The post-transfer balance exceeded the minimum by a wide margin. Status indicator green. I clicked compliance screening. Sanctions list check. Internal counterparty match. Audit trail generation. All marked complete. I hovered over execution. Tooltip appeared. System executed upon successful completion of upstream validations. No approver. No escalation. No review. I collapsed the tree. I navigated to Approval Authority Overview. This view aggregated approval requirements across transaction types. A matrix filled the screen. Rows for transaction categories. Columns for approval stages. Most rows included named roles: CFO, Controller, Treasury Director, Board. Intercompany transfers showed blanks under named roles. Under approval stage, it read Automated. I scrolled horizontally. The far right column labeled Fallback Authority. For most rows, fallback roles were listed. For intercompany transfers, the cell contained a dash. I clicked the dash. A modal opened, no fallback authority defined. Automated execution governed by policy. I closed the modal. I opened historical overrides. The system queried for records. A loading spinner appeared briefly. Then a message, no override events found for selected category. I widened the date range to 2 years, same result. I adjusted the filter to include all transaction types. Overrides appeared for vendor payments, capital expenditures, emergency payroll adjustments. Names appeared next to each override. Justifications logged. Intercompany transfers remained empty. I returned to the dashboard. At 8:19 a.m., a calendar reminder appeared in the corner of the screen. Audit committee materials, review window opens in 3 days. I dismissed it. I opened user directory. Search bar at the top. I typed Treasury. Results populated. Elena Chen listed as Director Treasury. Reporting line showed CFO vacant. I clicked her profile. Standard profile page. Title, Department, Permission Summary. Under System Roles, several entries appeared. Treasury Administrator, Payment Approver, Tier 2, Policy Maintainer, read. Policy Maintainer caught my attention. I clicked it. A tooltip explained, permission to view and maintain Treasury policy parameters. Changes subject to audit log. I clicked Audit Log. The log filtered to policy changes. Several entries from prior months appeared. Threshold adjustments, timing window changes. All approved, all logged. No entries within the past 2 weeks. I returned to the profile. Under Delegated Authorities, no entries appeared. I navigated to Controller in the directory, Rebecca Portman. Title, Corporate Controller. Reporting line showed CFO vacant. Her permission summary listed Financial Reporting Administrator, Payment Approver, Tier 1, Audit Liaison. No Treasury policy role. I compared the 2 profiles side by side. Sarah had policy visibility. Rebecca did not. I closed both profiles. At 8:34 a.m., I opened Workflow Designer. The interface required confirmation. A warning banner appeared, View Only Access, Editing Disabled. I acknowledged it. The designer loaded with flowcharts representing financial processes. I selected Treasury Rebalancing. The same sequence appeared as before, initiation through execution, no human step. I clicked Version History. A timeline appeared on the right. The current version dated September 2024. Prior versions listed beneath. I opened the prior version. The structure was identical, thresholds slightly different, no approval stage added or removed. I compared versions line by line, no change introducing or removing human review. The automation had existed for years. I closed the designer. I navigated to System Messages. A log of automated notifications populated. Most were informational. Daily summaries, monthly reports. I filtered for transfer. Several messages appeared, all similar in format. Subject lines varied by amount and accounts, none addressed to individuals, all system generated. I opened one from last quarter. Same structure, same footer, processed in accordance with established Treasury controls. I returned to today's message. Nothing distinguished it from the others. I opened Audit Trail Settings. The configuration page listed what events were logged, execution events, access events, policy changes, overrides. No category existed for human review in Treasury transfers. I scrolled to the bottom. A note appeared in small text. Certain processes are designed to execute without manual intervention to reduce operational risk. I noted the phrasing. I closed the settings. At 8:57 a.m., I refreshed the main dashboard again. No alerts. The cash balances remained unchanged. The system showed the transfer as settled and archived. I navigated to reports and generated the daily cash movement summary. The report compiled automatically. A progress bar filled, the PDF opened. The transfer appeared as a single line item. Description: routine intercompany rebalancing. No author. No approver. I checked the report footer, generated by Treasury Management Platform. Generated at 8:59 a.m. I closed the report. I checked my access again. Nothing had changed. The system continued to present information without requesting action. Everything loaded. Everything functioned. The movement of funds remained categorized as routine. At 9:12 a.m., I opened my calendar. The weekly view loaded. Meetings populated in their usual blocks. Audit committee check-ins. External auditor calls. Internal reviews. Nothing referenced Treasury activity. I clicked System Calendars. A secondary layer overlaid the view. Automated events appeared as thin gray bars beneath human meetings. Payroll runs, vendor batches, Treasury cycles. The intercompany rebalancing cycle appeared every morning between 6:30 and 7. Recurring, no owner listed. I clicked the cycle. The detail panel opened. Process daily liquidity optimization. Owner, system frequency, daily. Scope, parent and controlled subsidiaries approval requirement, none. Review cadence, quarterly. I scrolled. The configuration showed inputs, account balances at close of prior business day, forecasted outflows, exposure limits, outputs listed potential actions, transfer, hold, no action. The system had executed one of those actions. I closed the panel. I opened governance documents. The repository loaded, board resolutions sorted by date, committee charters, policy appendices. I searched for Treasury. Results appeared. Treasury policy, liquidity management policy, delegation of authority matrix. I opened liquidity management policy. The document opened in read-only mode, dense text, defined objectives, maintain sufficient liquidity, optimize capital efficiency, reduce idle cash. I scrolled to the section titled Operational Execution. The language was precise. Routine liquidity optimization activities may be executed automatically through approved systems to ensure timely and consistent application of policy parameters. No mention of approval. I scrolled further. Manual intervention is required only when policy thresholds are breached or when extraordinary conditions exist. No breach had occurred. I checked the extraordinary conditions section. Defined events, market closure, counterparty failure, regulatory intervention. None applied. I closed the document. I opened the delegation of authority matrix. The table loaded slowly, rows of transaction types, columns of approval roles. I navigated directly to intercompany transfers. The row listed dollar thresholds, all amounts under a single category. Approval authority, automated per Treasury policy. Backup authority, not applicable. Escalation path, audit committee quarterly. I noted the quarterly review. I clicked the escalation reference. It linked to a separate document, Audit Committee Oversight Scope. The document outlined responsibilities, review quarterly liquidity reports, review policy compliance, review exceptions. It did not list individual transactions. It did not list approval authority. I closed the document. At 9:34 a.m., I opened quarterly liquidity reports. The most recent report dated December 31st. It summarized cash balances, average daily balances, transfers executed. The intercompany transfers were aggregated, totals by month, no individual line items. The report had been presented at the January Audit Committee meeting. I remembered reviewing it. Nothing had stood out. The transfer I'd just seen would appear in the next report. As part of an aggregate, I closed the report. I opened User Access Map. The system displayed a graphical view of who could see what. Nodes represented users. Lines represented access. My node connected to reporting, vendor payments, Treasury read-only. Sarah's node connected to Treasury, admin, vendor payments, approver, policy view. Rebecca's node connected to reporting, admin, vendor payments, approver. Margaret's node connected to reporting, read-only, vendor payments, read-only, Treasury, read-only. The connections formed a pattern. Visibility distributed across functions. No single node controlled all three domains. I clicked Timeline View. The access map rearranged chronologically. Access grants appeared as markers: January 10th, January 12th, January 15. The grants followed the CFO suspension. I hovered over my own grant. Tooltip: purpose, oversight. I hovered over Margaret's. Same purpose. I hovered over Rebecca's administrative access. Different purpose. Operational. I closed the map. At 9:58 a.m., I opened Message Center. No new messages. I checked system notices. A banner appeared at the top of the page. Reminder: quarterly policy review scheduled for March 31st. The notice expanded. The review would cover Treasury policy, delegation matrix, liquidity parameters, review participants listed, audit committee, Treasury, controller. No mention of CFO. I closed the notice. I opened Treasury settings again. This time, I navigated to simulation mode. The feature allowed viewing hypothetical outcomes without executing actions. I ran a simulation using yesterday's balances. The system calculated recommended actions. One action appeared: transfer excess funds to concentration account. Amount matched the executed transfer. I ran the simulation again, adjusting the threshold slightly upward. The recommended action disappeared. I adjusted it downward. The recommended action increased. The decision was mathematical. I exited simulation mode. At 10:21 a.m., I opened Help and Documentation. I searched for approval. The results returned pages related to vendor payments and capital expenditures. I refined the search to Treasury approval. One result appeared: why some Treasury actions do not require approval. I opened it. The page explained the design philosophy. Automation reduces latency, reduces risk of missed opportunities, ensures consistency. It referenced governance safeguards, policy design, audit trails, periodic review, no individual sign-off. I closed the page. I checked the system clock. 10:34 a.m. I logged out of the portal and logged back in. The session restored my dashboard exactly as before. No prompts appeared. No notifications requested acknowledgement. The transfer remained part of the background. The system did not treat it as noteworthy. It existed as one execution among many. I remained able to see it. I did not need to approve it. I did not need to question it. The access allowed observation, not intervention. At 10:52 a.m., I opened Daily Operations. The panel displayed routine metrics: system uptime, batch completion rates, exception counts, all indicators green. I clicked Exception Monitor. 0 active exceptions, 0 escalations, 0 unresolved items. I adjusted the date range to include the last 30 days. A single exception appeared from 2 weeks prior. Vendor payment delayed due to missing invoice. Resolved within 4 hours. Logged. Closed. No Treasury-related exceptions appeared. I returned to the dashboard. I opened Roles and Responsibilities. The page summarized functional ownership by area. Reporting assigned to Controller. Treasury Operations assigned to Treasury. Oversight assigned to Audit Committee. No role listed for transaction approval within Treasury. I clicked Change History. The system displayed recent configuration changes, policy updates, threshold adjustments, user access grants, no structural changes to approval logic. I filtered for authority, no results. I filtered for approval. Results appeared only under vendor payments and capital expenditures. I closed the panel. At 11:07 a.m., I opened Scheduled Reviews. A list appeared: Audit Committee, February 18, Treasury Policy Review, March 30, Delegation Matrix Review, April 2. Each review listed materials to be prepared: aggregated report, compliance summaries, trend analysis. None listed individual transaction review. I clicked the February 18 entry. The agenda preview loaded. Q4 financial results. Liquidity overview, policy compliance attestation. The liquidity overview referenced charts and summaries. No line item detail. I closed it. I opened user messages again. Still nothing. I checked sent items. No messages from me regarding Treasury. I navigated to search and entered the transfer reference ID. The system returned multiple results. Transaction detail, daily report, monthly aggregation. I opened the monthly aggregation. The transfer appeared as part of a total, labeled routine. I clicked the label. A tooltip appeared, executed per policy parameters without manual intervention. I closed the tooltip. At 11:23 a.m., I opened Audit Prep Workspace. This area contained folders for upcoming reviews. Draft memos, supporting documents. A new folder had appeared automatically, January Treasury activity. Inside were summaries, charts, no raw transactions. The folder had been created by the system. Timestamped at 7:05 a.m., I opened the contents. One document titled Liquidity Movements, January, Preliminary. The document summarized totals, beginning balance, ending balance, net movement. The 2.45 million transfer was included in the net figure. No narrative explanation. I checked the document properties. Generated by Treasury Management Platform. Owner, system. I closed it. I navigated to contacts. I hovered over Sarah's name, status online. I hovered over Rebecca's, status in meeting. I hovered over Margaret's, status online. I did not message any of them. At 11:41 a.m., I opened Permissions Audit. The page required confirmation. I acknowledged. A table appeared listing permissions by user, sorted by most recent change. My name appeared near the top. Treasury Management, read-only, effective January 15, no expiration date. I clicked Request Change. A form opened. Fields for justification, scope, duration. I closed the form without entering anything. I returned to the permissions list. The access existed without my request. I opened Session Summary. The system summarized my activity since login. Modules accessed, documents viewed, exports generated, everything listed accurately. No warnings, no follow-up actions suggested. At 11:58 a.m., I checked the system time again. The morning had progressed without interruption. I logged out of the portal. The logout confirmation appeared. Session ended successfully. I logged back in. The dashboard restored. The Treasury tile displayed the same balances. The transaction remained settled. No new notifications appeared. The system continued operating within its parameters. I remained able to observe. Nothing required my approval. Nothing required my intervention. The access persisted. At 12:14 p.m., I opened vendor payments again. The pending queue refreshed automatically. 4 items remained, amounts unchanged. Due dates approaching, but not breached. I clicked into the first item, vendor Northline Data Services. Amount $86,400 due date today. Approval required by 3 p.m. Assigned approver Treasury Tier 2. The workflow diagram appeared on the right. Initiation complete. Validation complete. Awaiting approval. A blue badge indicated on track. I returned to the queue and opened the second item. Vendor Atlas Legal Group. Amount $142,000. Due date tomorrow. Assigned approver Controller Tier 1 status pending. Nothing unusual. I did not approve anything. I opened approval timing metrics. The dashboard displayed averages, time to approve by category. Treasury approvals averaged 42 minutes. Controller approvals averaged 3.1 hours. CFO approvals, historical, averaged 1.2 days. The CFO column showed no data points after January 9th. The chart adjusted automatically. The CFO line faded out, replaced by a dotted projection. I hovered over it. Tooltip, no recent activity. Historical baseline retained for reference. I opened escalation rules. A list of conditions appeared. If approval not completed within X hours, escalate to next tier. For Treasury approvals, escalation path listed Tier 3, automated hold. No human name appeared at Tier 3. I clicked Tier 3. A panel opened. Tier 3 represents system-enforced constraints. Transactions may be delayed or rescheduled. I closed the panel. I opened approval routing. This view showed how items moved when not approved in time. Vendor payments routed from Treasury to Controller, from Controller to CFO, from CFO to Board Committee. The CFO node appeared grayed out. I clicked it. Message, role currently vacant. Routing will bypass this node. I traced the arrow. From Controller, the arrow jumped directly to Board Committee. I closed the routing view. I returned to the pending queue. The first item's countdown clock ticked down. 2 hours, 41 minutes remaining. I waited. At 12:37 p.m., the page refreshed. The first item moved to approved. Approved by Treasury, Tier 2 approval time, 12:36 p.m. The name populated after approval. Sarah Chen. I opened the approval log. Timestamped entry. User ID, IP address, standard. No comment added. I closed it. I refreshed the queue. 3 items remained. I opened system messages. A new message appeared. Vendor payment approved, Northline Data Services. Automatically generated. I opened audit trail for that approval. Everything normal. At 12:49 p.m., I opened Controller dashboard. My access allowed read-only view. Rebecca had 3 items assigned, 2 vendor payments, 1 reporting task. I clicked the reporting task. Prepare Q4 cash flow reconciliation. Status in progress. I clicked the timeline. Estimated completion, February 2nd. I returned to vendor payments. One of Rebecca's assigned payments showed pending. Due in 18 hours, no escalation triggered. I opened approval load distribution. The chart showed approvals by roll over time. Treasury approvals had increased steadily since January 9th. Controller approvals had decreased slightly. CFO approvals dropped to 0. The system displayed a note beneath the chart. Approval volumes redistributed based on role availability. I clicked the note. A help pane opened. When an approval role becomes unavailable, workload is redistributed to available roles in accordance with delegation and policy. No mention of human decision. I closed the pane. At 1:11 p.m., I opened Delegation Matrix again. The CFO row showed unavailable. The system had marked it automatically. I clicked Availability Settings. A modal opened. CFO role unavailable. Reason, suspension, board resolution, effective January 9th. Controller role available. Treasury role available. I closed the modal. I opened Delegation Overrides. No overrides listed. I opened Escalation Logs. One entry appeared from earlier in the week. Vendor payment delayed 6 hours due to missing approval, escalated to automated hold, released after approval. No human escalation. I returned to the dashboard. At 1:29 p.m., the second vendor payment moved to approved. Approved by Controller Tier 1 approval time, 1:28 p.m. Rebecca, I opened the log. Standard, I closed it. The queue now showed 2 items. Nothing appeared blocked. Nothing required my input. The approvals flowed. The system continued routing tasks around the vacant role. No one announced the rerouting. No notification explained the change. The work continued. At 1:47 p.m., I opened Escalation Analytics. The interface displayed a heat map, rows for transaction types, columns for time intervals, colors indicated frequency of escalation events. Vendor payments showed occasional yellow bands. Capital expenditures showed sparse activity. Intercompany transfers showed none. I clicked Vendor Payments. The view expanded. A timeline chart appeared beneath the heat map. It plotted approvals against escalation thresholds. The chart annotated points where approvals occurred just before escalation triggers. I hovered over one. Tooltip: approval completed at T12 minutes, escalation avoided. I hovered over another. Approval completed at T3 minutes, escalation avoided. The system tracked proximity to escalation but did not intervene. I opened escalation paths again. For vendor payments, the path listed Treasury, Controller, CFO, Board Committee. The CFO node remained grayed out. The arrow skipped it. I clicked the arrow connecting Controller to Board Committee. A note appeared: direct escalation enabled when intermediate role unavailable. I closed the note. I opened Board Committee queue. Read-only access allowed me to view items pending committee review. The queue was empty. No vendor payments had escalated that far. I checked pending threshold alerts. None active. At 2:03 p.m., I opened Policy Exceptions. The system displayed a list of transactions that deviated from standard policy but were permitted. Several entries appeared from prior months. Each had a justification field. Each had a human approver. None from the past 2 weeks. I filtered by date, no entries after January 9th. I returned to Treasury Management. The balances remained stable. I opened Intraday Liquidity Monitor. The chart updated in real time. Small fluctuations occurred as minor transactions posted. No large movements. I checked upcoming actions. The system listed scheduled activities for the remainder of the day. Payroll preview, vendor batch processing, end-of-day reconciliation. Nothing required approval from me. At 2:21 p.m., I opened System Notices. A new notice appeared. Reminder: unapproved items will escalate per policy. It was generic, not tied to a specific transaction. I dismissed it. I opened User Availability. The page showed current status of approvers: available, available, Board Committee, not applicable, CFO, unavailable. The system treated the CFO as a static state. I clicked Role Details. The CFO role description appeared, responsibilities listed, approval authority listed. At the bottom, a line read, Availability determined by HR and Board Systems. I clicked the link. A separate system opened in a new tab, Governance Registry. My access was limited. I could view role status but not details. The CFO role showed status, suspended, effective date, January 9th. no end date. I closed the tab. At 2:38 p.m., I returned to vendor payments. One of the remaining items had shifted. Status, awaiting documentation. The approval clock paused. I opened it. A note appeared in the workflow. Invoice attachment missing. Approval deferred. The system had halted progression without escalating. I checked the audit log. The halt was automatic. I returned to the queue. The last item remained pending. At 2:54 p.m., I opened Approval Latency Report. The report compared current approval times to historical averages. Treasury approvals were faster than average. Controller approvals were within range. The absence of CFO approvals had not increased overall latency. The report included a summary sentence at the bottom: system performance within acceptable parameters despite role unavailability. I closed the report. At 3:07 p.m., the final vendor payment moved to approved by Treasury Tier 2. Sarah, again? I opened the log standard. I closed it. The queue cleared. No escalations occurred. No delays exceeded thresholds. I opened end-of-day preview. The system summarized expected closing positions. Everything balanced. I opened audit notes. My workspace remained unchanged. No prompts suggested follow-up. At 3:26 p.m., I checked messages again. Still nothing. I checked notifications. Only routine reminders. I checked the system clock. 3:31 p.m. The afternoon had progressed without interruption. Approvals flowed through available roles. The system compensated for the vacancy without announcement. No one requested direction, no one escalated concerns. The absence of a role manifested only as a skipped node in routing diagrams. Everything else adjusted. At 3:48 p.m., I opened approval history. The view defaulted to the past 7 days. A list populated, sorted by timestamp. Each row showed transaction type, amount, approval role, approver name, completion time. I changed the sort order to approval role. The rows reorganized. Treasury approvals grouped together. Controller approvals grouped together. A blank space appeared where CFO approvals would normally be. I scrolled. There were no gaps in volume. The total number of approvals per day was consistent with prior weeks. The absence of CFO entries did not reduce throughput. I opened comparative period analysis. The system displayed 2 columns side by side, January 1 to 8 on the left, January 9 to 16 on the right. Metrics aligned. Total transactions processed comparable. Average approval time slightly reduced. Escalations unchanged. A note appeared beneath the chart, variance within normal range. I clicked View Details. The system broke down approvals by role. Before January 9, CFO 18%, Controller %, Treasury 41%. After January 9, CFO %, Controller 36%, Treasury 64%. The redistribution was visible but unremarked. I opened Workflow Adaptation Log. This section tracked system behavior changes in response to role availability. An entry dated January 9th appeared. Role availability updated, CFO marked unavailable. Routing logic adjusted per delegation matrix. No human author listed. I clicked the entry. The details pane showed rules applied. Skip unavailable roles. Promote next available approver. Maintain SLA thresholds. No approval required to apply the change. I closed the pane. I opened delegation simulation. The feature allowed testing hypothetical scenarios. I selected CFO unavailable. The system displayed expected routing changes. I selected Controller unavailable. The routing adjusted again. Treasury approvals increased. Escalations moved directly to Board Committee after threshold. I selected Treasury unavailable. The system showed delays, automated holds, increased escalations. I exited simulation mode. At 4:12 p.m., I opened System Governance. This section summarized how operational systems aligned with governance requirements. It listed controls, delegations, reviews. One line read, Operational continuity prioritized over role dependency. I clicked it. The explanation expanded. Systems are designed to maintain function during leadership transitions. Delegation matrices and automation ensure continuity without requiring ad hoc intervention. No reference to interim approvals. I closed the explanation. I opened Policy Review Notes. This section contained commentary from prior quarterly reviews. Most notes were brief, no issues, within tolerance. One note from September caught my attention. Automation of Treasury rebalancing continues to reduce dependency on executive sign-off. Oversight remains sufficient via reporting. I noted the language. I scrolled. No follow-up comments. I closed the notes. At 4:27 p.m., I opened Email Archive. I searched for approval and filtered for messages addressed to me. Several emails appeared from prior quarters. Requests for expedited review, notifications of escalations, none from the past week. I refined the search to CFO. Messages appeared from months earlier, meeting invitations, approval requests, nothing recent. I searched for suspension. Only board communications appeared, formal notices, no operational instructions. I closed the archive. I opened meeting logs. This tool recorded meetings where approvals or escalations were discussed. The log showed no entries since January 9th. I scrolled back, the last entry referencing Treasury approvals dated November. I closed the log. At 4:41 p.m. I returned to user directory. I opened Sarah's profile again. Her approval count had increased. A small badge displayed high volume. I clicked it. The system explained, high volume approvers may receive workload balancing assistance. I clicked details. The system showed that when Sarah's queue exceeded a certain size, items would be reassigned to Rebecca if thresholds permitted. I checked Rebecca's profile. No such badge. The balancing favored Treasury first. I closed both profiles. At 4:56 p.m., I opened Risk Dashboard. The chart showed operational risk levels, all categories green. Leadership risk showed mitigated. I clicked it. The explanation stated, leadership transitions mitigated by delegation and automation. I closed the panel. I checked the system clock. 5:02 p.m. I refreshed the dashboard one final time. No alerts appeared. No exceptions emerged. The day's approvals had completed. The system had adapted to the vacancy without interruption. Approvals had moved. Decisions had been made. No one had intervened. At 5:19 p.m., I opened end-of-day controls. The page loaded with a checklist. Each item marked complete. Data synchronization, ledger reconciliation, approval queues cleared. I clicked Control Attestation. The system displayed a summary statement. All operational controls executed within defined parameters. No signature required. Expanded the details. Treasury operations completed. Vendor payments completed. Reporting tasks in progress. Exceptions none. I scrolled to the bottom. A timestamp appeared, generated automatically at 5:17 p.m. I opened Control Evidence. The system assembled artifacts, logs, reports, screenshots, all generated by the platform. The Treasury transfer appeared in the evidence set, categorized under routine operations. I opened the evidence item. The same transaction detail appeared, same reference ID, same authorization field, no additional context added. I closed it. At 5:33 p.m., I opened Audit Committee Workspace. The workspace showed upcoming materials, drafts, placeholders. A new item had appeared, January Liquidity Summary. I clicked it. The document preview loaded. Charts, aggregates, trend lines. The intercompany transfer contributed to a bar on the chart. No call-out, no annotation. I checked the metadata, prepared by system, reviewed by pending, approval, February 18. I closed the preview. I opened notification preferences. The settings showed what events would trigger alerts. Treasury transfers, summary only. Policy changes, immediate. Exceptions, immediate. The transfer did not meet criteria for immediate notification. I navigated to role changelog. The CFO role still showed unavailable. No additional notes. I clicked history. The entry from January 9th remained the last update. I returned to workflow monitoring. The real-time view showed idle state. No active approvals, no pending escalations. The system appeared settled. At 5:49 p.m., I opened search again and entered my name. Results returned my access records. Permissions, activity logs. One result stood out, access context Treasury oversight. I opened it. The page summarized why my access existed. Audit committee role, oversight function, read-only designation. At the bottom, a line read, access granted to ensure transparency during leadership transition. No expiration. I closed the page. I opened Governance Dashboard. This dashboard combined operational and governance indicators. Leadership transition, active. Operational continuity, maintained. Oversight coverage, adequate. I clicked Oversight coverage. The explanation expanded. Multiple board members have read-only access across financial systems. Margaret's name appeared. My name appeared. The distribution was deliberate. I closed the explanation. At 6:07 p.m., I checked user sessions. Sarah had logged out. Rebecca remained logged in. Margaret had logged out. I logged out as well. The confirmation appeared. I waited a moment. I logged back in. The dashboard restored. Nothing had changed. The Treasury balances were the same. The transfer remained recorded. My access remained intact. No message asked me to review the transfer. No request sought my approval. No workflow routed to me. The day closed as it had opened. Processes executed, approvals redistributed, authority expressed through configuration. I remained able to see it. I remained unable to alter it. Visual block 4. At 8:03 a.m. the next morning, I opened Audit Committee Workspace. The system restored my last session automatically. The January folders remained expanded. No new alerts. I clicked January Liquidity Summary again. The document refreshed. Same charts, same aggregates. I scrolled slowly this time. The first page summarized beginning and ending balances. The second showed net movements. The third showed policy compliance attestations. On the fourth page, a table listed governance touchpoints. Columns labeled process, control type, human review, frequency. I read down the rows. Vendor payments, manual approval per transaction, capital expenditures, manual approval per transaction, payroll, manual approval per cycle, intercompany transfers, automated execution, quarterly review. The distinction was explicit. I clicked Intercompany Transfers. A link opened to supporting documentation. The document header read, Treasury Automation Governance Overview. I scrolled. The text described the design rationale, liquidity efficiency, risk mitigation, timeliness. Midway through the document, a sentence appeared. Authority for routine Treasury execution is embedded in approved policy frameworks rather than delegated to individual roles. I read it again. I checked the document history. Created March 2018. Last revised September 2024. Reviewed by Audit Committee. I closed the document. I returned to the workspace and opened Delegation Matrix from there. The same table loaded. I focused on the column headings this time. Approval authority, backup authority, escalation authority. Each cell referenced roles, CFO, controller, treasury, except one row. Intercompany transfers referenced policy, not roles. I opened role definitions. The CFO role description loaded. Broad responsibilities, strategic oversight, financial leadership. Approval authority listed across multiple categories. Intercompany transfers were not mentioned. I opened controller. Same. I opened treasury director. Operational execution. Cash management. Banking relationships. Policy maintenance listed as responsibility. Approval authority listed for vendor payments up to a threshold. Intercompany transfers again absent. I closed the role definitions. At 8:31 a.m. I opened Workflow Ownership. This view listed processes and their owners. Vendor payments, owner, finance operations, capital expenditures, owner, finance operations, payroll, owner, HR and finance, intercompany transfers, treasury policy. Not a person, a policy. I clicked Treasury Policy. The policy index opened, multiple documents listed. Liquidity management, exposure limits, rebalancing rules. Each document showed approval status. Approved by board, reviewed by audit committee, effective date listed, no individual named as owner. I opened approval records. The approval log for the liquidity management policy showed signatures, board chair, audit committee chair, no CFO signature required. I closed the log. I returned to workflow ownership and clicked history. The history showed no changes to ownership in years. The process had never been reassigned because it had never been assigned to a role. I opened Audit Findings Archive. This archive listed prior audit observations. I searched for Treasury. Several entries appeared. Most were minor, documentation clarity, reporting format. One entry from 2020 noted, automated Treasury processes operate independently of executive approval. Oversight is achieved through reporting and review. Status, accepted. No remediation required. I closed the archive. At 8:57 a.m., I opened meeting materials from the January Audit Committee meeting. The slide deck loaded. One slide titled Liquidity Operations. It showed charts, trends. A bullet point read, Treasury automation continues to function as designed. No discussion notes attached. I remembered the meeting. We had spent less than 5 minutes on that slide. I closed the deck. At 9:14 a.m., I opened System Architecture Overview. This was a technical document, but accessible. It showed layers, data ingestion, rules engine, execution engine. The execution engine box fed directly into banking interfaces. The approval engine sat adjacent but did not connect to that path. I traced the arrows. Vendor payments flowed through approval engine to execution. Intercompany transfers flowed directly from rules engine to execution. I zoomed in. The diagram was clear. I closed it. At 9:29 a.m., I opened Change Requests. This section tracked requests to modify workflows. Several requests existed for vendor payment thresholds, none for intercompany transfers. I filtered for approval. No results. I filtered for Treasury. Only policy parameter adjustments appeared. No requests to add approval steps. I returned to the dashboard. At 9:41 a.m., I opened Risk Register. Treasury automation was listed as a risk category. Risk description, potential lack of human oversight. Mitigation, policy design, audit review, reporting. Residual risk, low. I click Owner Audit Committee, not CFO, not Treasury. I closed the register. At 9:50 a.m., I sat back and reloaded the page. Nothing changed. The system continued presenting the same structure. Authority did not appear as a name, it appeared as configuration. The transfer from the previous morning remained one instance of a process that had never required approval. No one had approved it because no one was meant to. The authority to move the funds existed before the vacancy. It existed independently of who occupied which role. The suspension had not transferred authority. It had simply revealed where authority already resided. At 10:12 a.m., I opened policy approval records. The interface listed policies alphabetically. Each row showed document name, approving body, effective date, review cycle. I scrolled to liquidity management policy, approving body Board of Directors audit review, annual last review September 2024. Next review March 31st. I clicked the approval record. A scanned resolution opened. Formal language, standard formatting. Resolved that the liquidity management policy, including automated execution parameters, is hereby approved. No reference to officers, no reference to delegated signatories. I scrolled to the signature block. Board chair, corporate secretary, no CFO signature. I closed the document. I opened delegation records. This section tracked where authority was explicitly assigned to individuals. Vendor payments, capital expenditures, payroll adjustments. Each category included named roles and escalation paths. Intercompany transfers did not appear. I used the search function. No results. I opened authority mapping. The system generated a visual diagram. 2 axes, process type and authority type. Manual processes clustered around named roles. Automated processes clustered around policy frameworks. Intercompany transfers sat fully within the automated cluster. I clicked the node. A description appeared. Authority source, board approved policy. I hovered over authority duration, tooltip, persistent until policy revision. No dependence on personnel. I closed the diagram. At 10:29 a.m., I opened incident response procedures. The document outlined how financial incidents were handled. Most sections referenced escalation to CFO. The Treasury section referenced escalation to Audit Committee only if policy breach occurred. I searched within the document for CFO. Several references appeared in other sections, none in Treasury execution. I closed the document. I opened Audit Committee Charter. The charter loaded, responsibilities listed, oversight of financial reporting, oversight of Treasury operations, no operational authority. Review only. I scrolled. A paragraph stood out. The committee does not engage in day-to-day approval of Treasury activity. Its role is to ensure policies governing such activity are appropriate and adhered to. I closed the charter. At 10:47 a.m., I opened Treasury role description again. I read it more closely. Responsible for execution of Treasury operations in accordance with approved policies. Execution, not approval. Responsible for monitoring compliance and reporting deviations. Reporting, not authorization. I checked the CFO role description again. Responsible for establishing financial strategy and recommending policies. Recommending, not executing. I closed both. At 11:02 a.m., I opened Approval Analytics. This time, I filtered by authority source. Manual approvals dominated most categories. Automated approvals dominated intercompany transfers. The chart showed a steady volume over years, no change around leadership transitions. I expanded the timeline to include prior CFO transitions. A spike in vendor payment escalations appeared during a prior transition. Intercompany transfers remained flat. I opened historical events. The prior CFO transition in 2019 was documented. Notes indicated temporary delays in approvals for capital expenditures. No mention of Treasury disruptions. I closed the history. At 11:21 a.m., I opened policy exception requests. I filtered for intercompany transfers. None. I filtered for Treasury policy. Several requests appeared to adjust thresholds, all approved by board. No requests to add human approval steps. I opened one threshold adjustment. The request included justification, scenario analysis, risk assessment, no mention of who would approve transfers afterward. The approval focused on parameters, not control flow. I closed the request. At 11:38 a.m., I opened training materials. These were used to onboard new executives. One module titled Understanding Treasury Automation. I opened it. Slides explained that Treasury automation was designed to operate independently to avoid bottlenecks. A slide read, Automation reduces key person risk. I noted the phrasing. Another slide, Authority is embedded in systems to ensure continuity. I closed the module. At 11:54 a.m., I opened compliance attestations. Treasury compliance attestations were submitted quarterly. The last attestation signed in December. Signer, Treasury Director. The attestation confirmed adherence to policy. No CFO sign-off required. I closed it. I checked the system clock. 12:03 p.m. I returned to the dashboard. Nothing had changed. The structure was consistent across documents, systems, and histories. The authority to move funds did not migrate when the CFO role became unavailable. It had never been attached to that role. The policy had been approved years earlier. The execution engine followed it without reference to who occupied which position. The revelation was not sudden. It was cumulative. The vacancy had not created a new power structure. It had exposed the existing one. At 12:21 p.m., I opened System Permissions Trace. The tool required an extra confirmation. A notice appeared. Advanced visibility, read-only. I acknowledged it. The trace interface loaded as a layered diagram. At the top, a transaction type selector. I chose intercompany transfer. The system generated a path. Input sources on the left. Balance tables, forecast tables, exposure limits, policy parameters, processing layers in the center, validation engine, rules engine, scheduling engine, execution layer on the right, banking interface, ledger update, audit log. There was no branch labeled approval. I clicked expand all. Additional nodes appeared. Logging, notification, reporting, still no approval layer. I compared it to vendor payment. I switched the selector. The diagram changed. After validation, a distinct layer appeared. Approval engine. Named roles fed into it. User actions. Decision nodes. I toggled back to intercompany transfer. The approval engine disappeared again. I hovered over the rules engine. Tooltip. Applies board-approved treasury policies. I hovered over scheduling. Executes actions within defined windows. I hovered over execution. Interfaces directly with banking rails. I clicked audit log node. A side panel opened, showing what was recorded. Timestamp, reference ID, policy version, no approver field. I closed the panel. At 12:39 p.m., I opened source code documentation. This was not raw code, but annotated logic descriptions. Each function block was described in plain language. For intercompany transfers, a line read, upon satisfaction of all policy conditions, the system shall execute transfer. The word shall was capitalized. I scrolled. There was no conditional language referencing human confirmation. I searched within the document for approval. No matches. I searched for review. Matches appeared only in reporting sections. I closed the document. I opened Execution Authority Registry. This registry listed what entities were authorized to initiate actions within external systems. Banks, clearinghouses, internal platforms. The Treasury platform itself was listed as an authorized initiator. Under Authorized By, the entry read Board Resolution. I clicked it. The resolution opened. It authorized the platform to initiate transfers within defined limits. It did not authorize a person. I closed the resolution. At 12:57 p.m., I opened Bank Interface Settings. Connection details appeared, endpoints, certificates, keys. The certificate owner was listed as the company, not an individual. Validity period extended 5 years. I checked the renewal history. Renewals occurred automatically, approved by policy. I closed the settings. At 1:13 p.m., I opened Exception Design Documentation. This document explained what would cause Treasury execution to stop. Policy breach, system failure, external rejection. Human objection was not listed. I scrolled to the bottom. A sentence read, absence of approval is not an exception condition. I read it again. I closed the document. I opened contingency plans. This section described what would happen if systems failed. Manual execution procedures were documented. Those procedures required multiple signatures, but they were labeled fallback only. The primary path remained automated. I closed the plan. At 1:31 p.m., I opened Historical Transaction Explorer. This tool allowed deep inspection of past transfers. I selected a date from 3 years ago. Transfers populated. I opened one at random. Same structure, same authorization field. Authorized by system. I opened another. Same. I scrolled further back. 5 years ago. Same. The pattern was consistent across time. I checked a transfer executed during a different CFO's tenure. Same. I checked one executed during a different board composition. Same. I closed the Explorer. At 1:52 p.m., I opened Access Anomaly Detection. The system flagged unusual access patterns, none related to Treasury execution. It did not monitor for approval absence. At 2:07 p.m., I opened Governance Q&A. This was a repository of internal questions and answers. One question appeared: who approves daily Treasury rebalancing? The answer: no individual approval is required. Execution occurs per policy. I checked the date. Answered in 2017. I closed the repository. At 2:19 p.m., I opened System Change Impact Analysis. This tool showed what would happen if certain components were removed. I simulated removal of the CFO role. The impact analysis showed changes to vendor payments and capital expenditures. No impact listed for intercompany transfers. I simulated removal of the Treasury Director role. Impact: policy maintenance delayed. Execution unaffected. I exited the tool. At 2:34 p.m., I returned to the dashboard and refreshed. Nothing changed. The revelation did not arrive as a single moment. It accumulated across diagrams, documents, histories, and simulations. The system did not wait for people. It did not reference them. The authority to move funds was not delegated. It was encoded. The platform executed because the rules allowed it to, not because someone said yes. At 2:51 p.m., I opened Authority Summary. This view consolidated execution rights across systems. It was not organized by person, it was organized by mechanism. Columns labeled Process, Authority Source, Execution Method, Review Layer. I read down the list. Vendor payments, role-based, manual transaction-level capital expenditures, role-based, manual transaction-level payroll, role-based, manual cycle-level intercompany transfers, policy-based, automated, periodic review. The distinction was explicit. I clicked policy-based. A filter applied across the table. Only 3 processes remained. Treasury rebalancing was the largest by volume. A side panel opened. Policy-based authority persists independent of role occupancy. I closed the panel. I opened role dependency analysis. The system displayed a matrix showing what functions would fail if roles were unavailable. Vendor payments showed degradation with 1 role missing. Capital expenditures showed degradation. Payroll showed degradation. Intercompany transfers showed no degradation until all systems failed. I clicked Details. The explanation listed dependencies. Depends on data integrity, policy validity, system uptime. No human dependency listed. I closed the details. At 3:09 p.m., I opened Escalation Boundary Definitions. This document defined when human oversight engaged. For Treasury, the boundary was defined as policy breach. I searched within the document for approval. 1 reference appeared. Approval is required for policy creation and amendment, not for execution. I closed the document. I opened Policy Lifecycle. A flowchart appeared. Draft, review, board approval, activation, execution, monitoring, review. The execution step was continuous. The approval step occurred only once, upstream. I followed the arrows. There was no loop back to approval for each action. I closed the flowchart. At 3:26 p.m., I opened Board Resolution Archive. I searched for Treasury. Multiple resolutions appeared over the years. Most approved policy frameworks. None approved individual actions. I opened one at random. Resolved that management is authorized to implement automated Treasury processes in accordance with approved policy. Management was not defined as a person. I closed the resolution. I opened System Ownership Registry. This registry listed owners for platforms. The Treasury platform owner was listed as Enterprise Systems, not Finance, not Treasury. Enterprise Systems reported to IT Governance. I opened IT Governance Charter. The charter stated that certain systems operated under board-approved mandates. Treasury Automation was listed as one of them. I closed the charter. At 3:44 p.m., I opened Audit Questions Log. This log recorded questions raised during audits. One question from last year appeared: why does Treasury execution not require CFO sign-off? The response: because authority is vested in policy, not office. I checked the status, closed, no further action. I closed the log. At 3:58 p.m., I opened Cross-System Authority Map. This map showed how authority flowed across platforms. For vendor payments, arrows flowed from users to systems. For Treasury, arrows flowed from policy to systems. Users appeared only in monitoring layers. I zoomed out. The map was symmetrical. No central human node. I closed it. At 4:12 p.m., I opened operational continuity metrics. A graph showed continuity scores during leadership changes. Treasury continuity remained flat across events. Other functions dipped. I opened the annotation. Treasury automation insulated from leadership disruption. I closed it. At 4:27 p.m., I opened user notifications. Still none. I opened pending tasks. None. I opened requests. None. At 4:41 p.m., I searched the entire system for the phrase approved by. Results returned thousands of records. Most belonged to vendor payments and expenditures. Intercompany transfers returned none. I refined the search to include the transfer reference ID. The field was blank. At 4:56 p.m., I returned to transaction detail for the original transfer. I scrolled to the bottom. The authorization section was unchanged. Authorized by system, approval path, default Treasury workflow. Override none. The system had never intended to record a name. There was no missing field. Nothing had been skipped. At 5:11 p.m., I closed the transaction and returned to the dashboard. The balances remained steady. The day continued. The execution engine remained idle until the next scheduled cycle. The authority to move funds existed as long as the policy existed. It did not appear in calendars. It did not appear in inboxes. It did not require attention. It was present even when no one was. At 8:17 a.m. the following day, I logged in. The dashboard loaded in its default state, no banners, no alerts, no indicators of recent activity beyond the usual timestamps. Treasury balances populated first. Parent and subsidiaries aligned. No variance beyond expected overnight movement. I opened Treasury Management. The consolidated view displayed the same structure as before, rows stable, columns unchanged. I expanded the concentration account. The balance reflected the prior transfer as part of its starting position. The transaction was no longer recent. It had moved into baseline. I clicked Transaction History and adjusted the date filter to today. No intercompany transfers appeared. I widened the filter to last 7 days. The transfer appeared midway down the list. No visual distinction from any other entry. I sorted by execution time. Newer transactions appeared above it. Vendor settlements, minor adjustments. The transfer continued to sink lower in the list. I opened Daily Cash Summary. The report generated automatically. Beginning balance, ending balance, net movement. The transfer was included in the opening figure. It no longer appeared as an action. It appeared as context. I closed the report. I opened Approval Calendar. The calendar view showed today's automated processes. Payroll preview, vendor batch, Treasury cycle scheduled for the next morning. Nothing scheduled for review. I clicked the Treasury cycle. Same configuration, same execution window, same approval requirement, none. I closed it. I opened notifications. Only routine items appeared. Reporting reminders, meeting notices, no Treasury-related messages. I checked system notices. No, I opened Audit Committee Workspace. The January folders remained. The liquidity summary document now showed a small status update, reviewed by system, data finalized. No human review logged yet. I opened Oversight Checklist. The checklist showed upcoming items, quarterly review scheduled, no ad hoc items added. I closed it. At 8:39 a.m., I opened Permissions Audit again. My access remained unchanged. Treasury Management read-only, no expiration date. Margaret's access unchanged. Rebecca's unchanged. I checked role availability. CFO role still marked unavailable. No new notes. I closed the page. I opened Workflow Monitoring. All workflows idle. No pending approvals. No escalations. The system status read, normal operations. I opened Operational Metrics. Charts updated. Processing times. Completion rates. Treasury automation showed 100% execution rate. No close the metrics. At 8:58 a.m., I opened Historical Comparison. I selected a random date from 3 months earlier. The dashboard reconstructed the state for that day. Balances, transactions, reports. I compared it to today. The structure was identical. Only the numbers differed. I exited the comparison. I opened Search and entered the transfer reference ID again. The result appeared. I opened it. The detail view loaded. The authorization field remained unchanged. Authorized by system. Nothing had been appended. No follow-up fields. No review status. I scrolled to the bottom. The audit log showed no new entries since execution. The record was complete. I closed it. At 9:14 a.m., I opened Reporting Workspace. The cash flow statement draft had updated overnight. The transfer appeared implicitly in intercompany cash movement totals. No footnote, no explanation. I opened Footnote Editor. There were footnotes for revenue recognition, contingencies, debt covenants, none for Treasury execution. I closed the editor. I opened Meeting Schedule. Today's meetings populated. Audit Prep Call, Reporting Sync, none referenced Treasury execution. I opened the agenda for the Audit Prep Call. Agenda items listed: financial results, liquidity overview, policy review timeline. No transaction level discussion. I closed the agenda. At 9:31 a.m., I opened email. Inbox empty of operational messages. I searched for the transfer for reference. No emails referenced it. I searched for liquidity. Only prior reports. I closed email. I opened system logs. The overnight log showed routine batch processing. Treasury cycle completed successfully at 6:41 a.m. The next entry scheduled for tomorrow. I closed the log. At 9:47 a.m., I returned to the main dashboard and refreshed. Everything remained stable. The system did not draw attention to the transfer. It did not require acknowledgement. It did not prompt review. It existed as part of the environment. I remained able to see it. I remained unable to change it. The access persisted. The operation continued. At 10:06 a.m., I opened Routine Operations. The page summarized daily activity across systems. Completed items populated automatically. Pending items listed below. Treasury appeared once. Daily liquidity optimization completed. I clicked it. The detail pane opened. Execution time 6:41 a.m. Duration 19 seconds. Outcome: action executed. No reference to the specific transfer, just a status. I closed the pane. I opened process history. This view listed executions by process rather than by transaction. Rows showed date, process name, status. The Treasury process appeared every weekday. I scrolled back: yesterday, last week, last month, each row identical except for the timestamp. No indication that any one execution differed from another. I clicked an entry from 3 weeks earlier. The detail pane showed the same structure, same labels, same fields, different numbers, same logic. I closed it. I opened data retention settings. Treasury transaction records retained for 7 years. Aggregated summaries retained indefinitely. No special handling for large transfers. I closed the settings. At 10:24 a.m., I opened User Activity Overview. This dashboard showed what users had accessed today. Names appeared with timestamps. Reporting, vendor payments, calendars. My name appeared next to Treasury Management at 8:19 a.m. Margaret appeared at 8:47 a.m. Rebecca appeared at 9:02 a.m. No one appeared multiple times. No one lingered. I opened Margaret's activity, read-only views, reporting, Treasury summary, audit workspace. I closed it. I opened Rebecca's activity, reporting, vendor payments, approval logs, no Treasury execution actions. I closed it. I opened Sarah's activity, Treasury policy view, vendor approvals, no execution actions. The system executed without appearing in user activity. I returned to the dashboard. At 10:41 a.m., I opened Knowledge Base. I searched for intercompany transfer. The first result: how does daily liquidity optimization work? I opened it. The article explained inputs, thresholds, outputs. It ended with a short section titled Governance. Execution occurs automatically in accordance with approved policy. Oversight is achieved through reporting and periodic review. No mention of exceptions. I closed the article. I opened Frequently Asked Questions. One question appeared: what happens if no one approves a Treasury transfer? The answer: no approval is required. I closed the page. I opened System Health. All services green. I clicked Treasury Engine. Status operational. Last execution time 6:41 a.m. Next scheduled execution tomorrow 6:30 a.m. I closed the panel. At 11:02 a.m. I opened Compliance Dashboard. Compliance checks displayed by category. Treasury compliance, in compliance. I clicked it. A checklist appeared. Policy adherence, threshold adherence, audit trail completeness. All checked. No requirement for sign-off. I closed it. I opened Exception History. Filtered by Treasury. No entries. I widened the filter to 1 year. No entries. The system did not record exceptions because none occurred. At 11:19 a.m., I opened Manual Intervention Log. This log tracked instances where humans intervened in automated processes. Several entries appeared for payroll adjustments, none for Treasury. I closed the log. I opened training records. This showed who had completed required training modules. Treasury automation training completed by board members, Treasury staff, audit staff. The module description read, Understanding Automated Treasury Execution. Completion did not grant authority, it granted understanding. I closed the records. At 11:34 a.m., I opened Role Change Tracker. The CFO role remained unchanged. No interim assignment, no delegation notice. I opened delegation notices, none active. I closed the tracker. I opened calendar again. The day continued. Meetings moved. Reminders appeared. Nothing referenced Treasury. At 11:52 a.m., I opened Reports queue. The daily cash report had already been generated. The monthly liquidity report was scheduled. No ad hoc reports requested. I opened Report Definitions. The liquidity report definition listed included metrics. No section for approvals. I closed it. At 12:07 p.m., I opened Search and typed Approved. Results appeared across vendor payments, none across Treasury. I refined the search to Authorized. The Treasury transfer appeared. Authorized by system. The field was static. I closed the search. At 12:19 p.m., I opened System Configuration Snapshot. This was a read-only snapshot of current configuration. The Treasury workflow diagram appeared, same as before. I compared it to a snapshot from 6 months earlier. No difference. I closed the comparison. At 12:33 p.m., I opened User Requests. No pending requests. I opened Change Requests. None submitted. I opened Issue Tracker. No issues logged. The system remained quiet. The absence of activity was itself routine. The transfer no longer stood out as an event. It had become part of the background state. It did not generate follow-up. It did not require closure. It was not awaiting anything. The system had already moved on. At 1:04 p.m., I opened Historical Baselines. The system prompted me to select a reference period. I chose Rolling 90-Day Average. The dashboard recalculated. Graphs shifted smoothly. Cash balances normalized against prior movement. Variance bands appeared faintly around the mean. The transfer from 2 days earlier did not register as an outlier. It sat within the expected range. I toggled the comparison to year over year. The chart adjusted again. Seasonal patterns emerged. Quarter-end spikes, mid-quarter plateaus. The transfer aligned with prior January behavior. I hovered over the data point. Tooltip within historical variance. No further detail. I closed the chart. I opened forecast models. The model inputs loaded. Beginning balances now included the transfer as a given. Projected liquidity curves extended forward. No annotation indicated a past decision. The model assumed the current state as baseline. I ran the forecast. Projected outcomes populated. All scenarios stable. I adjusted an unrelated variable, expected vendor outflows. The curve shifted accordingly. The transfer remained embedded. It was no longer treated as an action. It was treated as starting condition. I closed the model. At 1:22 p.m., I opened Scenario Archive. This archive stored prior what-if analyses. Several scenarios existed from previous months. I opened one. The scenario assumed different cash distributions. The starting balances reflected the historical state at that time. The system did not reference how those balances had been achieved, only that they existed. I closed the scenario. I opened Controls Narrative. This was a generated document used for auditors. It described how controls functioned in steady state. Treasury automation was described in present tense. Transfers occur automatically in accordance with policy. No mention of initiation, no mention of approval, no mention of oversight beyond periodic review. I scrolled to the end. The document concluded with a timestamp, generated today. I closed it. At 1:41 p.m., I opened Operational Memory. This tool showed what the system retained as significant events: exceptions, failures, overrides. The Treasury transfer was not listed. It did not meet criteria for memory. I widened the criteria. Still nothing. I closed the tool. I opened Alert Threshold Configuration. Treasury alerts were configured only for failures or breaches. No alert existed for execution. I checked notification history. No Treasury notifications had been sent. I closed it. At 1:58 p.m., I opened Audit Trail Export. I selected the last 3 days. The export generated. I reviewed the file. The Treasury transfer appeared as a single line among many. No emphasis. No follow-up entries. The log ended. I closed the file. At 2:13 p.m., I opened meeting notes from the audit prep call earlier in the day. Notes had been auto-generated. Topics discussed. Action items. Liquidity overview marked reviewed. No action items assigned. I closed the notes. I opened Task Manager. My task list appeared. Reporting review, committee prep, policy review scheduling, no task reference treasury execution. I opened System to Do, empty. At 2:31 p.m. I opened Access Review. This was the periodic access certification tool. My name appeared, status active, certification due in 90 days. I could attest later. The access was assumed valid. I closed the review. I opened Change Calendar, upcoming changes listed, system maintenance, reporting updates, no treasury workflow changes scheduled. I closed it. At 2:47 p.m. I opened Daily Digest. The digest summarized system activity. Vendor payments processed, reports generated, meetings scheduled, treasury automation listed once, daily liquidity optimization completed. No details. I closed the digest. I checked the system clock, 2:53 p.m. I refreshed the dashboard again. The interface reloaded without change. The balances remained, the workflows idle. The system state assumed continuity. The transfer was no longer something that had happened. It was something that had always been there. The system did not mark a before and after. There was only current state. At 3:06 p.m. I opened Continuity Review. The page summarized operational posture during periods of change, leadership transitions, system updates, policy revisions. Treasury continuity was listed as unaffected. I clicked it. A short explanation appeared. Processes designed to operate independently of individual roles. I closed it. I opened Operational Language Settings. This was a rarely accessed section. It defined how system statuses were labeled, as terms like pending, approved, completed. I searched for executed. Treasury processes used executed. Vendor payments used approved. The distinction was encoded at the language level. I closed the settings. At 3:21 p.m. I opened Archive View. This mode stripped the interface down to historical records only. No dashboards, no alerts, just data. I navigated to the ledger. The ledger showed balances as of each day. I selected the date before the transfer. Balances reflected that state. I selected the date after. Balances reflected the new state. The ledger did not record why the balance changed, only that it had. I moved forward a day. The new balance persisted. I moved forward another. Still persisted. There was no reversion. I closed the archive. I opened Baseline Lock. This feature showed when baseline states were established. The last baseline lock occurred automatically after end-of-day reconciliation. Timestamp, 2 days ago. Sorta left. The baseline included the transfer. Once locked, it became reference state for all future operations. I closed the feature. At 3:39 p.m., I opened Operational Assumptions. This document listed assumptions used across systems. One assumption read, current balances reflect authorized and valid operations. There was no conditional clause, no exception language. I closed the document. I opened Reconciliation Notes. The reconciliation engine had matched all accounts. No variances, the notes field was empty, no commentary added. I closed it. At 3:56 p.m., I opened Policy Review Prep. This workspace prepared materials for upcoming reviews, draft questions, data pulls. One question was auto-generated. Have automated treasury processes functioned within policy since last review? The answer field was pre-filled, yes. No supporting narrative required. I closed the workspace. I opened Audit Trail Monitor one last time. The most recent entries were routine, login events, report generation, calendar updates. No treasury execution events appeared. They had already aged out of prominence. At 4:12 p.m. I opened System State Summary. This was a single-page snapshot. Operational, normal governance, stable, liquidity, within threshold. Exceptions, none. I refreshed it, no change. I checked user messages again. Still empty. I checked pending reviews, none due today. I checked alerts, none active. At 4:28 p.m. I opened Access Context again. The page still showed access granted to ensure transparency during leadership transition. No expiration, no action required. I closed it. I opened Logout History. It showed my prior logins and logouts. Nothing unusual. I logged out. The confirmation appeared. I waited. I logged back in. The system restored exactly the same state. Nothing prompted me. Nothing highlighted itself. The balances were the same. The transfer was embedded. The workflow awaited the next cycle. The system continued without reference to the event that had prompted my access. The access itself had become routine. The authority had already moved. The system did not pause. It did not check. It did not ask. It continued.